Hi, I am really glad that you're here. You know, in a world that's largely based on social media appearance and other meaningless things, it's really rare to hear people speak from an unfiltered, genuine, heartfelt place. I'm your host, Lacy Hartselle, and This is Temporary is a safe, casual, non-judgmental space for you to hear from other people's experiences with their mental health. And through this, I hope you can see that all of our voices are powerful enough to help other people feel seen and heard and validated. Because even when you feel like it, you're not alone.
Are you afraid of what's next? Me too, me too. You've seen the best you get.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to, or back to, This is Temporary podcast. I am your host, Lacy Hartselle, and wow, is it good to be doing this and to be connecting with you all in this way. What a blessing. So this is the initiation of, I want to call it season 2 of This is Temporary. I created the podcast a year ago this month, in Mental Health Awareness Month in May of 2020, and had 20 awesome episodes with great guests who just had beautiful, wonderful, insightful, healing things to say and share, just by simply sharing their truth. And I want you to know that the same is true for you. You know, everybody's voice, everyone's story, everyone's truth matters and is worthy of being seen, heard, validated, celebrated. So I want you to know that and take that home today. I want you to know I like to keep things as real as possible. And I'm very open and honest. I always will be with you. The reason I needed to take a break was for my mental health. And I so enjoyed and was honestly just as much benefiting from the podcast as much as you all have shared and the messages I've received from you about it in response. But 2020 was hard for all of us, right? I don't know one person who was unscathed after 2020. And you know what? Growth happens in the discomfort. So I'm trying to see and take away all the positivity that I can from all the pain and the struggle that's necessary, right? But I realized when I was looking back over the Instagram for This is Temporary podcast, the last episode I launched, which is so appropriate, was Wholeness, was the title of it, by Holly Zazier. It was episode 20. And what a great way to wrap up, you know, the first 20 episodes with Holly's positive, gracious, you know, trusting in yourself kind of message about being whole and accepting all versions of you and all parts of you. And that was released in November when I was starting to like really become more emotionally exhausted and reactive than I had been prior to. And it's just cool to me that at the time I was so overwhelmed and so reactive, which is what led me into one of the most life-changing things I've ever experienced, which was trauma therapy. I started in November of 2020, an intensive outpatient trauma therapy program at Trauma and Beyond here in California. And I will praise that organization, was that what you would call them? I would praise them all day long, and I will, because they helped change my life. And I was really skeptical and scared when I started trauma therapy. I had to go through a series. I guess the process, for any of you who are interested, was kind of like, I talked to my therapist and I was going, you know, I've been saying a lot of my reactivity is just my bipolar episodes. And that's that. There's nothing I can do about it. But the more I did research on trauma and on taking accountability for your mental health, which is another topic y'all know if you've listened to the other episodes that we've touched on, taking accountability and responsibility for your own mental health and fixing your own shit, you know, no shame. We've all got it. None of us are unique that way, but we do have to work on it. and it is your responsibility and mine. So I was talking with my therapist, and I was like, Nate, I I need more help. And that was really hard to say. I mean, I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. Um, it was hard because there's a certain level of vulnerability that and sharing and openness that I had grown comfortable with, as my having my platform as a mental health advocate, and a lot of things I had gotten used to talking about. So it was comfortable. It might have sounded super vulnerable to all of you, but there was so many other things where I could dig deeper. We can always dig deeper, into an area and a realm of stuff that I hadn't yet unpacked. I didn't understand it. It was still very foggy and overwhelming and triggering. And I got to a point where I was tired, not only of kind of living in a survival mode, where I felt more like I was having to just do maintenance on myself 24/7, which are all good things. Self-care and taking care of yourself, having a routine, beautiful things that I will never lose the practice of. But mine was coming more from a place of desperation and necessity, because I was so triggered left and right. I was so emotionally reactive, and my body would be panicking, and I'd be having these anxiety or panic attacks. And I would maybe have a glimpse into, maybe this is where that came from. Maybe this trauma event is where that came from. But I didn't know how to cope. And that was hard to admit because I have devoted my adult life to healing and to understanding and um, to just sorting and sifting through all of my stuff. So it was scary to face a part of me that I didn't understand. It was, I was afraid. I was afraid of part of myself. And a saying that is in a meditation I love that I repeat often is that when we are rejecting parts of ourselves, we cannot feel whole. And I wanted to feel whole, and I want you all to feel whole. And it's available to us. I had a fear that, at my age, I know I'm not old, but I've done so much work that I kind of, fall of 2020, I had a really bad depression in October. And I was thinking to myself, will this just be my life forever? I just have to learn to be knocked down again and again and again, and partially being human, yes, but to that extent, to the way that I extremely feel things so intensely and was taken out of what felt like my personality, my lifestyle, my friendships. I just was like, I was having such a hard time maintaining anything. And that's when, like I said, I always tell people when they come to me asking, when do you know that you're ready for, professional help, whether it be talk therapy with a counselor or seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist for potential, diagnosis and medication, if that's what you need. There's many different paths and many different things that can help. But I say, if your gut brought you this far to ask, honor that, voice that's inside of you, leading you to help, leading you to healing, because it's worth it. And I promise you that your personal work is the best work you can do, your introspective, internal, emotional work, because no matter what your circumstances are, no matter where you are, when you've done the internal work, you have worked for a perspective for yourself that is yours, that helps you to rise above, helps you to be more resilient, helps you to zoom out and understand the bigger picture, to find gratitude, to find positivity, to take from the struggle and the pain or the unknown and the lack of clarity, which, for the record, none of us are really supposed to know it all. I think a lot of us act like or put pressure on ourselves like we are supposed to have it all figured out, or we're supposed to know it all or have all the answers. And finding comfort in that unknown is part of, I think, in my experience, the emotional work to loving yourself and understanding yourself, having grace and acceptance of self. So I started trauma therapy, intensive outpatient. What worked for me? And let me also always acknowledge um, that I am fully aware that it is a luxury, especially in this country, to have access to help, professional help. I wish, and I'm hoping and hoping it'll manifest itself as the future unfolds, that mental health help and professional care will become more available readily and as a priority, in every area, because I think that's at the root of so many things that people are putting band-aids on. We'll get into that. We've touched on that in other episodes, but my point is, a healthy mind, a healthy body and emotions, a healthy emotional system that's got a better set of communication skills and coping skills that are, fruitful versus something that would tear you down. All of that jazz. It's just the root, guys. And everyone, it's the root. Sorry, I'm from the South. I don't know why. I think I was embarrassed my whole life to say y'all. I'm not really embarrassed anymore, but and then I started saying you guys, and I kind of hate it. Anyway, you lovely people. So I went through a process where I reached out to Trauma and Beyond. That's the specific place I went to. I'm comfortable sharing that that's where I went to, because I love them so much. And it was on Zoom because I started in November, and California has been much more, slow maybe to open things up because we're such a big concentrated area and city, or in LA. And they got back to me. We talked through my stuff. It was a process, and I even went through, consultation. I'm not really sure what you would call it, but several days of talking with their psychiatrist to see what my needs were, if they were a good fit for me, if I was a good fit for them. And then I was placed into the program, and I went with the intensive outpatient program that was 3 days a week, and 3 hours a day. So it was for me Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and I half that time would be meeting in individual sessions with therapists assigned to me and a psychologist assigned to me. And then the other half the time during each day was spent in group therapy. And let me tell you, talk about extremes. The way I started group therapy in November was terrified. I I am a people person, but when it comes to talking about the stuff that you don't even understand about yourself, that level of vulnerability and that safe of a space, which it was. But of course, I'm new to it, so I didn't know. And you have to build that trust and just lean in and have the faith that if you jump, you'll be caught. And it was a bumpy start for me, and everyone's experience is different. But I think it's funny to be honest about how I started it because of the opposite ending I had in perspective. I was terrified at the first couple of group sessions. Even in group, I would sit here, for those of you watching on YouTube who can see me. I would just be like, I wouldn't even look at the camera when they were trying to talk to me and get me to share. And I would just be like, and I was just, I mean, I'm an emotional person. I cry a lot. And I'm normally okay and comfortable with that. But when I'm uttering things from my soul, from my shadow self that has never reached another person's ears, not even my own, never, gotten past my own mouth to express certain things that had happened to me, certain things I had felt, certain things I was currently experiencing, and the fear of not knowing if anyone would judge me or be able to relate or etc. It was terrifying, and I'm so grateful I had that experience, as extreme as it was, because as the months went by, I started at the end of November and I finished at the beginning of March, and it was every week. And by the end, groups were my absolute favorite part of trauma therapy. And we had different specified groups, I should clarify, that were tailored to my needs. So my first half of trauma therapy, I started with individual was a psychologist, and then I met with her twice a week, and then an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in EMDR. They were wonderful. And I worked on EMDR from my home. I even did bilateral tapping like this, crossed arms and my hands on my shoulders, tapping back and forth as I processed through. Because some people in EMDR, there's many different methods. You can do like the light that goes back and forth as you're processing your grief and trauma. To get it out. The whole point is to get it out, process through it, help it become less reactive so that when you are triggered or when something does come up, you're able to cope better, manage yourself better, manage your emotions better because you've already worked through a lot of it specifically. And EMDR was also very tough. I mean, let me tell you, I am like dehydrated after those days. I'm having to chug water. I have been snotting and crying all over myself the whole time. And again, worth it. Absolutely worth it. Absolutely 100 times over. I would do it again and will do it again. We'll continue, even though my intensive outpatient program finished for me when my insurance cut me off in the beginning of March. And there was a lot of grief for me there. We'll get to that because I had found such a home and community in those people and that place. We'll get to that, but I did want to address the other courses that were there for anyone who's interested, just because I didn't know about any of this before. Even in all the studies I had done and all the help I had received, I was just like, what is all this? And it's exactly what my soul, that's what I needed. And the other ones, the group sessions I started with was like a mindfulness and yoga class. And we did like yoga nidra and which is more like meditative and tapping in and out of your body and also just yoga, which I loved because I have a history and background in that, but it taught me to sit and listen and fully be present versus just kind of going through the motions of what I had known. And then I had a DBT course, group therapy, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And I didn't really understand before, but basically dialectical behavioral therapy, for those of y'all who know what CBT is, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, working on your thought processing, figuring out where you might have automatic negative thoughts like catastrophizing, polarized thinking that's extreme, using the should statements or mind reading, the list goes on. Look up automatic negative thoughts. Ants is what you can look them up as well for CBT. So this was DBT, it was a little different. Basically all about your emotions. How do we regulate and manage emotions better? And all of DBT, each session was helping us work through and understanding how to stay in the window of tolerance. There's the window of tolerance, meaning like something happens, you might feel affected by it, but you're able to stay, if you're in a healthy place, in a window of tolerance where you're not explosive about it and it doesn't take you out. So above and below the window of tolerance, below it, you have like the response that would be, kind of like F it, apathy, it shuts you down. So you might get depressive or into a vegetative state because of the way you react to something. Whereas for me, I do that in my depressive episodes a lot, but my window of tolerance was more explosive, meaning above the window of tolerance, either one outside of it is unhealthy per se, but y'all aren't alone. I'm not alone. The above it is more of the like angry, reactive, volatile, anxiety attack, anxious feelings, overwhelmed, spiraling thought, that kind of stuff. And so basically I looked at the beginning of DBT and I was like, so I'm like always outside of the window of tolerance, it feels like. And I was like, where do I start? I was so discouraged, everyone. I really was, but I was in the right place and I was with safe people who were there, who understood me, who could relate. And as I took more time to lean in and trust this program that was there to help me, I mean, you get as much as you put you get as much out of life as you put into it. And I allowed myself, I'm so grateful as the time went by, especially my second half of being in it, to really lean in. And I'm just a different person than I was 6 months ago in the best way. To the core, obviously, I'm still me, but the way I handle things, oh my gosh, definitely not perfect. I was like really depressive the other day. I can't control that, but I can react to it differently and better, and I can bounce back faster and have a better perspective that's not judgmental or shaming, even though those voices still try to creep. Um, so the other group that I had the first half of trauma therapy was called process group. And that one was real tough because we really were sitting in there processing. And for the record, we have uh, a way that we talk about things in all these groups that's very respectful and understanding that each person has gone through different things, and we don't talk in detail because you don't want to trigger anyone. And we're also mindful of each other because we understood. So it's such a safe, special place with wonderful people, because we were all very careful and we knew how it felt to be in this process, right? Of working through trauma. And so we would talk about it through the emotions lens, because I've always said with empathy, and me being a full-blown empath, is that empathy is not relating to the circumstances of another person. It's relating to the feelings experienced through it. So you could have gone through something completely different from someone else, and you could have felt the same things. And I never get into comparing pain or anything like that because there's no point, that's not really even possible. Comparison is a thief of joy. But and then you can go through the same thing as someone, say you and a sibling go through the same event, and y'all can process it completely differently. I mean, that's the beauty of diversity in humankind. And I don't know, it was just amazing. Obviously, I'm really passionate to talk about it. And then I'm just giving y'all the tip of the iceberg for this first intro episode back into this next session of what This Is Temporary is. But I'm so excited to share with you all everything that I've learned, because it's changed me, and it's just given me so much hope and resilience and honestly joy and excitement to see not only the growth within myself, the growth within the people in the program. We all inspired each other, and our pain on the days where you didn't want to show up or talk at all, it was like just by being there, you were creating, hope and positive change for yourself and others. Because it's like, oh my gosh, if they can be there, then so can I, in the midst of like the lowest of lows. And the group that I switched into through my second session, my last like 6 weeks or whatever, was called Intergenerational Trauma and Spirituality, as a group. And man, that one was wonderful. And the leaders, I'm intentionally not naming all of these people to let them and everything, but they were wonderful. They were amazing, so genuinely caring, and there for the purpose of helping others to heal. And you could tell that, there was a deep understanding and, just an understanding between everyone. And I highly recommend always, I'm an advocate for therapy for always. I think everyone benefits from therapy, and don't be discouraged if you haven't found the right person. Keep looking. It's a process sometimes. Some people get lucky and find the perfect person the first time, and other people, it takes a while. Same thing with medicine. I always tell people, my bipolar medicine, which I am in my brain chemistry does require a little bit of help, a little kick to help level me. But it was quite a roller coaster getting here. And I now have been on the same medication for a while, and I can just up and down. I talk with my psychiatrist, but I don't get into too much of that unless people specifically ask, because everyone's different, and you shouldn't you shouldn't compare what works for me to what works for you. So I wanted this to be an intro back, to tell you all where I've been, to kind of update you. I am really grateful because finishing trauma therapy at the end of, no, beginning of March, right before my birthday, I was really sad and really scared when I was notified that my insurance was cutting me off and I had to finish in a week. Also, I had made such a special community with those people that I didn't want to leave. And I was scared. I was like, I feel so comfortable and safe here. And I felt like I'd grown so much and I had so much to continue to do and learn and unpack, which is always true. Um, but a part of me also, there was a voice that was saying, hey, trust that this is your timing. Trust that you're ready. Trust that things are the way they're supposed to be, and what is for you, and what is not is not. As an actor, I have to tell myself that a lot. And the truth is, oftentimes when we zoom out, we're in the moment, maybe unable to see the benefit or the blessing that's awaiting us if we just lean in and trust the way things are. Of course, there are always exceptions to that with abuse and things like that, that is not on your accord. And we'll obviously get more into that as we have in other episodes. However, overall, I started to lean in and I started to trust I'm ready. And I was. And I've always thought for the past several years of my life that if I reach a place where I feel joyful, that it must be the hypomania, not me. And I think I over identified with my diagnosis of bipolar quite a bit and misunderstood myself in the process or at the expense of that. And it's really cool that through trauma therapy, not only did I learn to trust myself, to create a connection with myself, my higher self, my higher power, that I also was able to work through, I guess, with loving and accepting and seeing and supporting and validating myself, that I truthfully stopped seeking it desperately from others. And my projection of pain on others is far more rare now, because a lot of us just do it. We don't even realize it. I'm just going to call it for what it is. Again, no shame here, guys. Ladies, man, all of my non-binary babies. No shame here. We're human. We're human beings, meaning we're just moving around trying to figure this stuff out with all this random conditioning that life and pain and other people's trauma and intergenerational stuff has been slammed down on us. And it's like learning to think for ourselves and learning to decide what's for you and what isn't, and your beliefs about yourself and about everything. That's for you to decide, not for others to spoon feed you, and not for others to, force you into. If something doesn't feel good to you, that's your body and your mind and your spirit telling you, like, hey, I'm an indicator here that something's off. And honor yourself and listen. Go in the way that feels right to you, that feels true and good and light and loving. Um, and that's why I always say, honor that voice, that leads you to help. And it's the best thing you can do for yourself. So, with the awareness that I am very, very fortunate to have received the help, all the professional help from my psychiatrists, my therapists, everyone so far, I honestly feel as a person that it is my joy, it is my gift, it is my honor, and it is my purpose to then pay it forward and say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, uh, mental health uh, clinical person. How's that for lingo? But I am a human being who has dealt with a lot. I've been through a lot. I have felt a lot. I have seen a lot. I've experienced a lot, and that is what brought me to being a mental health advocate in the first place. Is because, and why I created this podcast is because I felt alone. I felt scared of myself. I felt fearful of my shadow, of the parts of me that I didn't understand. that I was afraid I would be judged for, shamed for, not approved of for expressing. And I just won't suppress anymore. That's what got me talking several years ago. I started just saying, F it. I am going to start sharing because I know there are other people who get it. And you know what? There are some people who aren't ready to hear it, and that's okay. They don't have to understand me. I don't seek people's understanding anymore, because I understand me, or I'm learning to. And the parts of me I don't understand, I accept, and I want the same for you. And again, I don't have it all together. I don't have it all figured out. I don't have all the answers. But if you had told a younger version of me who had just been diagnosed bipolar, who didn't actually know anyone other than my father personally, who was also bipolar, and he and I did not have a great relationship at the time. Much has changed, and I'm very grateful. Happy updates on that, woo woo. But all that to say, if I had been told several years ago when I was first diagnosed that my life could be manageable, that I could have joy, I could feel stable again for like most of the time, that I could bounce back quickly and catch my episodes before they hit rock bottom so that I don't have to be taken down into a low place of suicidal ideation and tapping out of all of my commitments and stuff. If you had told me that, I would have just started crying and been like, get me there, please. Because what I've learned, especially through trauma therapy, is I participated more in my own suffering than I even realized, just because of my perspective on things, because I had accepted and limited myself in the way I talked about myself, the way I believed. It was very limiting. And I don't do that anymore. Trauma therapy taught me, and I catch myself. I might accidentally say something like, I'm so impatient. And it's like, no, Lacy, if I say I am impatient, I'm identifying myself and limiting myself to that identity of being impatient. But if I say, oh, sorry, I feel a little impatient today, that's totally valid and fine, because that gives me the freedom to say, well, I don't want to feel impatient. I want to work out of this. How can I help this? It gives you the opportunity to make change. And we all have the opportunity and choice to make a difference in our lives starting right now. And it's a daily thing. I finished 77 days today, of in a row, of doing a morning routine of waking up, drinking water, like half a bottle or a bottle, and then journaling for 10 minutes at least, and then making my bed, meditating for at least 5 to 20 minutes, normally on my rooftop. I love California. And then I say or shout or look in the mirror and give an affirmation for that day of like, I feel great today, or I am okay today, or it's going to be okay, or I am grateful, whatever you want it to be. I love myself. Even if you don't feel it, practice it, because it will start to have an effect. Proven of that is I had this past week, I was sinking into a depressive episode, and I didn't even catch it because it's been so long since I've had a fully depressive episode. My therapist explained to me, which is interesting, that I enter my depressive episodes in more of a masculine way, which is kind of through the lens of irritability, anger, anxiousness. Yeah, that's kind of how I find myself. Like when I notice that I'm being emotionally exhausted, or irritable and short fused or volatile, that I'm heading into a depressive episode that eventually will wipe me off my ass and be like, whoa, how do I get here? Those used to take me out. I remember, again, the reason I had to stop the podcast was because in October, all of October, I had a full depressive episode that wiped me out. And I had a couple good moments and good days throughout October, but the whole month I was depressed, and it was scary. It was suicidal ideation involved as well. And I have a rescue pill that helps with that, and I still use it. I used my rescue pill on Saturday, because when Saturday hit and I realized finally oh, I'm depressed. I don't feel safe in my head right now. I'm having really like a break from reality. I get a little delusional. I can have some there's psychosis that can be involved in some people's bipolar depression, and that's not foreign to me. Not that it's there every time, but it's when for me it's not as much where I start like seeing things that aren't there, but for my experience, it's like I believe things that aren't true and I'm convinced of them. And it doesn't make sense when I'm in my rational mind, but when you're in a depressive, fully emotional place, I'm convinced. And it's scary because a home that has become safe to me is all of a sudden questionable. Everything's questionable. And I'm like, in like unsafe mode. And so that's when I knew I need to take and I got really upset. I had a breakdown about it and I cried to my boyfriend, Zach, and we're getting better about communicating these things. And he held me and was like, it's okay. I love you where you are. And I'm so grateful for him and the growth we're finding together. Um, but I still was like, I need to tap out. I need to be in survival mode. I'm going to jump in the shower. I'm going to take half of my rescue pill and I'm just going to go get in bed. And that's what I need when I'm like that. I don't need to think about anything serious. I don't need to make any important decisions because my brain is not in a place where it's healthy to do that. So I went to bed and I woke up the next morning after sleeping for like 11 hours because my rescue pill is an antipsychotic and it makes me very sleepy. And I woke up and I felt baseline, which is kind of a terminology we've used in therapy and in dialectical behavioral therapy. Life and moods and emotions are on a scale of 1 to 10. 5 would be like baseline, which is I guess some people can consider that survival mode. I think below 5 is survival mode, where you're needing to just do maintenance on yourself to get yourself up above baseline. But I was kind of like, meh, okay. So far, I don't feel as bad as the day before. But what happens on a day like Saturday for me, which again used to be like weeks, or sometimes, several tough days stuck there, is I get overwhelmed with fear that I'm going to be stuck there. When the depressive episode hits, I'm like, oh gosh, how long is this going to last? Am I going to lose my personality and my life again? And am I going to feel, either emotionless or too emotional and not appropriate in public for a while? Who knows? Those judgments don't serve you when you're in that place. They just don't. So I try to get away from thinking and I just get into the doing, just drink some water, take your rest pill, take a bath, take a shower, go to bed, get back in your body and get more connected to yourself. And yeah, so I did that. The next day I was better. And then the day after that, or maybe it was that day, the next day on Sunday, I hiked with my friend Kate and we went to this part of a hike where I call it Yell Side because it's on a hillside of this hike we really like, and it just opens up into a vast valley. And I always like to yell when I'm there, which is hilarious because half the people that pass me when I'm doing this get it immedietely. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it's been 2020. We all need to yell. We all need to say something like, okay, cool, yeah, just express. We're confined for so long. And then there's other half of people that I can tell there's like a awkward giggle of like judgment or something. I don't care. But I just am like, hey, I think it's very healthy. There's been so many stigmas around emotional expression, especially when it comes to gender. People in the American culture, for the most part, I don't like general statements, but, generally speaking, it's weird for men to be super emotionally expressive, whereas it's expected for women to be. And then women, people generally, invalidate and call it dramatic and, super emotional and down, whatever. Fuck all of that. Emotional expression is healthy. It's so much better to get it out, to express yourself, find a way. It doesn't have to be the same way as anyone else, but find a way to express and let yourself have an outlet. If it's going on a run, if it's singing in the car at night, if it's, writing, if it's journaling, if it's talking to a friend, if it's using your platform, however big or small it is, because it matters either way, to share your truth. It matters to get out your truth and your feelings, and they're valid. So please, please, please make sure that you are not suppressing yourself and that you're having your outlets to feel whole, to feel healthier, to get it out. If you need to find a yell side like I do, go to it and scream out, I'm okay, or I'm going to be okay, or this hurts right now and I will feel better. This is temporary. Please, hey, shout out to me, please, if you go on to a yell side of your own or a place and yell out, this is temporary, because it's true. The pain is temporary. Um, the struggle is temporary, and it's necessary for the growth as well. We just can't see it in the middle of it. So yeah, the next day I was hesitant to yell for the first time. And then once I started doing it, I started laughing, genuinely laughing. And I felt good. I created some good feelings. And another meditation I like starts with, hey, today is an opportunity to feel good things, an opportunity to see positivity from everything, not the toxic positivity that denies all the other stuff, right? We're not trying to be like that, but balance. It's all there, and it's all supposed to be there, and it all can help us. Um, so yeah, I think moving forward with the podcast, I'm still going to do guest episodes that I'm so excited for. I already have some people that I have lined up to interview. One person even won an opportunity to be a guest through one of the collaborations with Unsinkable Youth and Bubble. I did an Instagram live, and she responded after, so and was chosen. So I'm so excited to hear from y'all, to engage more in this community of people who care to talk about mental health and destigmatize it. Um, it brings me so much joy. And I want to do episodes, and let me know, either through the website or through Instagram, however you can get in touch with our platforms under This Is Temporary, to give me feedback. If there's something you want to hear about, something you want to talk about, let me know, please. Let's address it, because I want to do shorter episodes where I'm honing in on specific topics, and also the guest episodes. And also, I think I'm going to start doing some shorter, just so that you can have another extra resource for like a meditation, because those have helped me so much over this past 4 or 5 months. I do different ones every day, but I like guided meditations or affirmation meditations, or there's just so many different versions. But I think I want to put some on here and create some for you as a resource. And that's what I want to be for you all, a vessel, a resource, a connection of understanding and love when it comes to talking about being a human, and a whole human who's allowed to be fully themselves. And that we can get to a place where we can accept. I've talked about shadow self a lot, just because I really like Carl Jung's work on the shadow self, basically being the part of you that you were taught growing up is not acceptable. So when certain parts of us are rejected, we throw it to the shadow self behind us that we act like isn't a part of us, or we hide it or suppress it into our subconscious. And it's like it's there. It doesn't stop being there. So making friends with it helps in the wholeness. But it's just the part that it goes back to that suppression, I guess, is like we've been conditioned to think this part of me is not acceptable. A huge one for me was the fact that I grew up in the South, and I've known. I mean, I've gone through many different things that have been challenging and tough and confusing in the development of my framework of life and who I am, because we're shaped by what we go through, right? Our experiences shape our beliefs. But I also knew about myself growing up in the South. I was a fluid little baby as far as sexuality goes. And that wasn't allowed really where I was from. It certainly was not, it wasn't looked at as a good thing. And since I was fluid, and I always was kind of like everyone I saw as beautiful, and there's an attraction element, and I mean, I had attraction to women when I was in middle school. But I never entertained that part of myself because I already knew by the community that was immediately around me that that was not preferable. Not only that, but I guess I try not to use strong language, but I mean it was like condemned. That's a really strong word. And it's true. That's what I was taught. So I went, okay, well, this other part of me that's also attracted to men, I guess is acceptable. So, and preferable. So I'm just going to stick to that path. And it's funny because I always pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down. And as I got older, I started to realize that that was a part of me I wrestled with and pushed further into the shadow self, because I didn't understand it. And I was like, it's just easier for me to just be like, yeah, no, I just, whatever. And it wasn't until I started to give myself the freedom to think and believe and to question and to tune into me and go, what are you afraid of? What fears do you have about yourself? What is it about yourself you're hiding? What is it about yourself you're suppressing, and why? And I cared too much what people thought. And now I'm in California, where obviously, thankfully, it's a much more free place to be when it comes to having, out there beliefs. I think to a lot of my Southern friends, I'm the woo-woo friend who's kind of out there, but I love it because I don't like the impression of having it all together or knowing everything, because the truth is we don't, like no one knows everything. And so I like having an open mind and being surprised by people, being surprised by learning about other people's stories and other things that are out there. I mean, it's just, I even had, you're like, you're going to lose me on this. You can think and feel and believe whatever you want to. And if it's your truth, I celebrate you for that. That's again, the beauty of diversity is we shape each other by our own different beliefs. I think that's cool. It doesn't mean it has to threaten yours. Yours is yours. No one can take that away from you. But I did have my first psychic medium reading that I was healthily skeptical of, if that's, I had been conceptually understanding of it for years. And this past year, I read books and listened to podcasts and stuff on different people with those gifts. And just like anything, I think you've got a spectrum of people with abilities, whether it's, people who scam you or people who have a true gift, and then people who have like the Academy Award winning level of that gift. So I was just trying to understand. It all really started my interest when my grandfather died over a year ago. And I was just really curious because I've always felt like I could connect, but I always questioned it and doubted it and was like, that's not the stuff mapped out by science. So we don't really know. So is it just kind of a guessing game? Do I just have to have faith and just choose to believe, and is that okay? And yes, it is. But I just encourage people to search and to follow your interests, and if your heart has questions, follow them. And at the end of the day, we're either making decisions from light and love or fear. And when I find myself in a pickle, I kind of boil it down and go, why, until I get to the root. And I'm like, oh, I'm afraid right now. I don't want to live my life out of fear. So what's the decision based in love I can have right here? And that's what brought me to, in this random situation, I eventually got to have a personal session and reading, and it wasn't scary. It was beautiful, and it exceeded my expectations, and it was very comforting. I felt very guided and connected and excited. And I don't know, it's a very personal thing for me. If you want to know more about it, message me. Maybe eventually I'll make a episode about that, but it's different, and it's not for everyone, and that is totally okay. But I feel like I live less in fear now. I still have fear, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel controlled by it. I feel more excited. And one thing that's probably good to end on is that in one of my last sessions of my spirituality and intergenerational trauma group in trauma therapy, I said to the leader of that group, I said, I feel like I was such in survival mode and in a fearful place for so long, that brought me to trauma therapy and brought me to just get more help. I was like, I've been learning since halfway through trauma therapy that I've grown more curious. I've grown more curious about life. I've grown more curious about everything. And it's exciting. And she told me that comes from a place, meaning that you feel safer. You have to feel at least somewhat safe to have the freedom to be curious. When you step out, you've done the work, and you step outside of survival mode, you start to live again, and you start to feel free, safe, to play, to question, to be curious, to be excited, to be hopeful, to be open-minded and pleasantly surprised about what today will hold, and taking life one day at a time, like an adventure. And I I didn't think I would feel that way again. When I tapped back into my younger years before things went to shit, I remembered the innocence of how playful and curious and excited and hopeful I was for life. And I feared I would never feel that way again, or that I couldn't sustain it. I might catch a glimpse and then I'd mourn it being gone the next moment. Um, and since processing through some of the hardest stuff I've ever had to do, trauma therapy was some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It was life consuming for those months, and it was tough. It was draining, but it became energizing because I started to see a difference, and I started to feel like my true self again. And that's just so fucking cool. I want that for everyone. I want it for myself, and I wanted to wait to make this episode again until I could test it and see that it was sustainable. And now it's been 2 full months, and I've gone through a little depressive episode. I've gone through some ups and downs. I've been through some tough things since then, but I still feel like my true self. I still feel connected. I still feel more resilient, more hopeful, more excited, more curious, more safe. And I want everyone to feel safe inside their own head. That's like a human right. I want people to feel safe inside their own head. And I know what it feels like to not. And again, no shame, no judgment. This is coming from a place of understanding. And I hope that for those of you who can connect, I hope that this has helped spark some joy or hope for you, and curiosity at least, on your healing journey and on your just life journey. And yeah, I am so grateful to be back hosting. This is temporary. I know that the timing is what it was supposed to be. And I look forward to making this a regular thing again and releasing every week or 2 weeks. But please do communicate with me if this speaks to you. Let me know what else you want to hear, how else I can be of service with the resources and knowledge and experience I do have. Because I'm not a doctor. Please don't treat me that way. I will always direct people to help. But yeah, I really, really, really am excited for the journey that you're on. The fact that you're even listening to this now is really cool. It's really, really cool. And yeah, I hope all good things for you. And I'll be talking to you all soon. Mwah.